can't be friends with you if you're gonna vote for Trump. Well then, bye, bitch. See you never.
I think this outcome would just sting a little less if everyone just decided to finally fucking be honest for a second. I wish his followers would just be honest about why they actually voted for him. Can we just now stop pretending like this was about the economy? Can we stop pretending like this is about taxes? I wish these deplorable individuals would just fucking admit that this was not about improving the public school system, that this was about making sure that the public school system collapses so that brown and black kids don't have an avenue to be educated.
So ever since Trump got elected, my rights have been taken away from me, and it just keeps going. And I think I'm going to divorce my husband.
Oh, and another thing. Me and you will never be friends if you're voting for Donald Trump. Me and you will never remain friends if you're voting for Donald Trump. It's not a political difference. This is not the 2012.
Hey bestie, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're diving into something that's been making headlines and, let's be honest, stirring up some drama since the results of the 2024 US presidential election. As you probably know, Donald Trump won, and the fallout hasn't just been political. It's been personal. Yes, bestie, I'm talking about breakups and even divorces happening because of the election results. For some couples, the political divide has grown so wide that it's become impossible to bridge. And while this might seem dramatic, there are real reasons behind these decisions that we're going to explore together. We'll also touch on the broader context, including initiatives like Project 2025, and discuss why this election has had such a profound impact on relationships. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's unpack this together. Let's start by addressing the elephant in the room: the results of the 2024 election. With Donald Trump securing another term in the White House, the political landscape has shifted dramatically. For some, this victory feels like a validation of their beliefs and priorities. For others, it represents a step backward on key issues like climate change, reproductive rights, and social equity. And while elections are always polarizing, this one feels particularly intense because of what's at stake. Now, imagine being in a relationship where you and your partner are on completely opposite sides of this divide. For many couples, this election has forced them to confront fundamental questions about their values and priorities, and for some, those differences have proven to be deal breakers.
I think this outcome would just sting a little less if everyone just decided to finally fucking be honest for a second. I wish his followers would just be honest about why they actually voted for him. Can we just now stop pretending like this was about the economy? Can we stop pretending like this is about taxes? I wish these deplorable individuals would just fucking admit that this was not about improving the public school system, that this was about making sure that the public school system collapses so that brown and black kids don't have an avenue to be educated, so that immigrant children don't have an avenue to be educated. They wanted a Donald Trump presidency because they don't want to spend tax dollars on public education. Just say you hate public education. Just say you don't want to educate kids with your tax dollars. This conversation would be a lot easier to have if you just were honest with us. Because you know what? We already know. We already know who you hate. We already know what your vote means. So quit pretending, okay? Quit pretending like you're a good person. You don't have to pretend anymore. Your guy won. He's the worst person in the world, and you voted for him because you like that. So just be who you are. Be who you are.
Oh, and another thing. Me and you will never be friends if you're voting for Donald Trump. Me and you will never remain friends if you're voting for Donald Trump. It's not a political difference. This is not the 2012, 2004 elections where we just disagree on how the economy should be ran. This is my life. If you are willing to vote for someone who gets to determine whether I live or die if I have complications when I have a child, you will never sit in the presence of me. I had to cut off one of my closest friends because of this election. It is that deep. Anybody can go. I don't care who you think you are.
I voted for Kamala Harris. In fact, I voted for nearly a full Democratic ticket. Blue for the Senate, blue for state representatives, blue for district attorney, blue for university regent, and so on. And despite that, the amount of Islamophobia and anti-Arab sentiment that I have personally received regarding the results of the election is staggering, saying that my country should be burned, that they want to watch Gaza bulldozed into a beach, that I should be deported or banned from the country as a Muslim. As if I wanted this, as if I voted for this, simply on virtue of being an Arab woman. And knowing what I know now, I still would not change how I voted, not even a little bit. Because my hurt feelings doesn't change what's right, and my activism does not stop at people who look like me. Like Auntie Kamala said, do not stop trying to make the world a better place. Now, I understand people are scared and angry regarding the election results and are looking for someone to blame. Believe me, I am too. But my community is not responsible. My community that makes up 1% of the voter base is not responsible. Start by blaming the people in your own lives who are responsible, rather than using bigotry as an outlet for your anger. Blame the men in your lives whose vote you had to cancel out. Blame the boyfriends and husbands that you refused to sever ties with even after they voted to revoke your rights. Blame your fathers who chose economic opportunity over your right to your own body. Blame your WASP mothers who have spent their entire lives upholding the misogyny that keeps you both down. Blame your own religious leaders whose endorsements of Trump you ignored because it's an uncomfortable conversation. Blame your favorite creators and streamers who made red pill content mainstream. Blame the billionaires who conducted illegal raffles to impact voter turnout. Hell, even blame your district ballot coordinator who neglected to mail out thousands of mail-in ballots. There are so many legitimate places you can place blame rather than making Muslims the scapegoat.
Politics isn't just about policies or candidates. It's about values. It's about how we see the world, what we prioritize, and the kind of future we want to build. In a relationship, those shared values are often the foundation. When you and your partner are aligned on the things that matter most, like kindness, respect, and a shared vision for the future, it strengthens your bond. But when you're not, it can create a rift that's hard to ignore. For example, let's say one partner is deeply committed to fighting climate change, while the other supports policies that prioritize economic growth over environmental protections. Or imagine one partner celebrates the results of this election, while the other feels devastated by what it means for marginalized communities. These aren't just political disagreements, they're clashes of identity and priorities. And for many, that's just too much to overcome. Now, let's talk about something that's added fuel to the fire, Project 2025. If you haven't heard about it, this is a conservative policy agenda designed to reshape the federal government in ways that align with the Republican platform. For supporters, Project 2025 represents a vision for reducing government overreach and prioritizing issues like economic stability and national security. But for critics, it raises concerns about potential rollbacks on climate initiatives, LGBTQ+ rights, and healthcare access. For couples with differing views, Project 2025 has become another battleground. If one partner sees it as a step forward and the other sees it as a threat, it's not just a policy debate, it's a fundamental clash of values. And that's why this election has had such a profound impact on relationships.
If you're heartbroken because friends and family have cut you off because of the election and the way you voted, just know your pain and confusion is a direct proportion to the pain and confusion they've experienced over the last 10 years that you chose to ignore.
Now, I know I'm not the only one. I lost 2 friends this week, all because we voted differently in this last election. And so with that being said, and really the sadness that accompanies really not knowing the persons that I lost, because if I really had truly known them and knew that my political affiliation or choice in my vote this election was going to end our friendship, there wouldn't have been a friendship to begin with. And that's the thing. What they don't realize is that my neighbors don't really care to champion a cause of anything when they're more worried about putting food on the table and paying the bills, sending their kids to school. My neighbors are worried about the safety of their children, their families, their wives. They're worried about our country continuing to be who we always were, pro-American and pro-everyone, but first pro-American. If I had known that I would lose my friends over a vote, they wouldn't have been my friends in the first place.
Let's look at what's happening now. Since the election results were announced on November 5th, I've seen so many stories of couples breaking up and even divorcing over political differences. One story involves a couple who had been together for 5 years. They'd always had some political differences, but this election brought those differences to the forefront. When one partner celebrated Trump's win and the other felt devastated, it became clear they couldn't reconcile their opposing views. Another story I came across was about a married couple who struggled to navigate their differing opinions on Project 2025. For one partner, the initiative represented a positive step toward reducing government inefficiency. For the other, it felt like a direct attack on their values. Ultimately, they decided they couldn't stay together. These stories highlight a painful truth. When our values are fundamentally misaligned, it can make even the strongest relationships feel unsustainable.
A divorce lawyer says she got 14 new clients after the election, nearly 3 times the normal number for the busiest of weeks. Political disagreements have been tearing families apart for a decade now, but 2024 seems to be on a whole other level. Which isn't surprising, of course. The contrast between the two respective sides of the political aisle could not possibly be more stark. And women's issues were, of course, one of the things that were at the center of this election. And it seems to have been a lot of women's last straw, if what divorce lawyer at Parker Lawyer on X experienced is any indication. In her tweet, she noted that aside from the fact that November is the slowest month of the year for divorce lawyers, a phenomenal week for her would be 5 new cases. Instead, she got 14 in just the 2 days after the election. And of course, it's possible that her surge in clients was driven by men, but it's highly unlikely as women initiate as much as 70% of divorce proceedings according to some estimates. And she's not the only legal professional who's noticed a surge. Social media is also full of posts from men saying that their wives have even already served them divorce papers since the election. Many of them, like this since deleted Reddit post, expressing shock that someone would end a marriage over just politics. But it's likely not just politics. The shocking misogynist rhetoric unleashed by people who voted like him since election night is frankly astonishing. All those your body, my choice chants among men who voted for the president-elect are... I don't even know what to say about that. But probably even more relevant is the fact that polling has shown that Republican voters, the vast majority of whom are men, were largely misinformed not only on the facts of the issues at hand in this election, but more importantly, the Republican policy proposals put forth to solve them. With, for example, Google searches about tariffs going absolutely through the roof on November 6th. After the election was already over. For Democratic voters, on the other hand, the majority of whom are women, polling has shown the opposite to be true. So we can safely assume that most women are very familiar with what's about to come down the political pike. And among those potential policies is the elimination of no-fault divorce, which has been a fixation among Republican politicians, men's rights activists, religious conservatives, and many others for quite some time now, and would mean women were only permitted to divorce their husbands if they could prove some kind of wrongdoing, which is of course impossible in most cases. As another woman on X put it, when it comes to divorce, there's a real feeling that women better do it now if they want to do it. And it seems like an awful lot of them are drawing this same conclusion. As the old saying goes, elections have consequences.
Y'all, I just had to break up with my boyfriend. I just had to break up with my boyfriend because he said he's not voting today, and I can't be with a man that don't vote. If you don't exercise your right to vote, you can't exercise your right to be with me. How inconsiderate, how low down, how irresponsible is it for you not to get your ass out there and vote? So I've just been in shambles all morning because I just had to call him and tell him, like, we're just friends because...
So ever since Trump got elected, my rights have been taken away from me, and it just keeps going. And I think I'm going to divorce my husband because he He keeps taking my rights away from me.
I just said you couldn't have any more chickens.
Same thing!
What are you talking
Same
about?
thing!
Hold up, let me get this right. So this one is for the fathers, okay? This is for the dads. Actually, this is for the fathers of daughters, all right? This is for the girl dads. Actually, this is for the fathers of daughters who proudly vote for Trump, okay? This is for the girl dads who are voting for Trump. This one's for you. Now, hold on to your trucker hats because I have a feeling it's going to piss you off, but genuinely, I just have a question, and I'm not trying to anger you, annoy you, or aggravate you. I'm just trying to ask you a simple question. When your daughters come up to you and say, Daddy, Daddy, I want to be president one day, do you keep it real? Are you honest with them? Do you say, sure, baby girl, it's 2056 and we haven't set up any sort of standard or precedent that should make women feel like they could be in charge of this country, but yeah, baby, you could be the first. Do you keep it real with them? Do you give them the Remember the Titans speech? Do you say, you've got to be perfect in every aspect of the game? Do you tell them they have to be perfect? Do you tell them they have to be perfection? Do you keep it real with them? Do you tell them that they could be exemplary both in school and in career? Do you tell them that objectively they could be unbelievably successful and brilliant, but they're still going to be seen as stupid? They're still going to be seen as inadequate, as incompetent, as unable, and as inept by society. Do you tell them that? Do you tell them that they could stand toe-to-toe with a man who is a criminal, a man who is a misogynist, a man who is a rapist, a man who is a racist? Do you tell them they can stand toe-to-toe with this man and they're still going to be seen, compared, and judged as equals? Do you tell them that the bar is going to be set so unbelievably high for them and so unbelievably low for him, and they're still going to be seen, judged, and compared as equals? Do you tell them that? Do you tell them the story? The story about how once upon a time you voted against their best interests and future? Do you tell them that story? Do you tell them, God forbid, if they ever have to have a medical emergency where they have to make a decision about their own body, that you voted for the campaign that made sure they couldn't make decisions about their own bodies? Do you tell them that? If they ever tell you that a man made them feel uncomfortable in a room, do you tell them that you voted for the man who notoriously made women feel uncomfortable in rooms? Do you tell them that? Do you tell them that you voted for the man that emboldened a generation of boys to make a generation of girls feel uncomfortable in rooms? Do you tell them that you voted for that man? Do you keep it real with them when they're single, when they're childless, when they're gay? Do you tell them that you voted for the man who made sure society looked down on them if they're divorced, looked down on them because they're women? Do you tell them that? I'm just asking, do you keep it real? Copy.
The difference between Trump supporters and everybody else comes down to one quality, and it's this. People with very low IQ have very high opinions and strong opinions about things. Opinion is really the lowest form of human knowledge. It requires no accountability and no understanding. But do you know what the highest form of IQ is? Empathy. Because it requires us to think beyond our egos and live in somebody else's shoes.
Now, let's talk about the couples who are making it work, even in the face of political differences. The key here is mutual respect. Some couples have found ways to navigate their disagreements by focusing on what they have in common and setting boundaries around political discussions. For example, agreeing to focus on shared goals, like raising a family or supporting each other's career aspirations, can help keep the relationship strong. One couple I read about made it a point to educate each other about their perspectives without judgment. They didn't always agree, but they valued the opportunity to learn from one another. For them, the relationship was more important than any political divide. Of course, there are times when the differences are too great to overcome. If your political disagreements are leading to constant arguments, resentment, or a lack of respect, it might be time to ask yourself some hard questions. Do you feel valued and understood? Are these differences creating a toxic dynamic? Can you see a future where these issues don't drive you apart? If the answer is no, it's okay to let go. Walking away from a relationship that no longer aligns with your values is one of the most difficult but empowering decisions you can make.
Let's talk about who's voting for Donald Trump. Because last week at one of his rallies, there were signs that said, "Reclaim America." And that is a slogan that is used by white supremacist groups. There are a lot of people that ask, why aren't you voting for Donald Trump? And they don't want you to give a reason having to do with him as a person. Now, I will start by saying I do not agree with his economic policies, or his stances on foreign affairs, or his stances on immigration. But more than that, I don't agree with him as a person. Because if you're voting the same as a white supremacist group, you may not be a white supremacist, but that's not a deal breaker for you. You might not be homophobic, but it's not a deal breaker. You might not have sexually assaulted somebody, but it's not a deal breaker. You might not spread false rhetoric about immigrants, but it's not a deal breaker. The president is supposed to be the best of us. and those should all be deal breakers.
So I'm seeing a lot of people like saying they're divorcing their partner because they voted for Trump. It's all over Instagram and TikTok. But like, my question is, what did you guys discuss in your relationships? How did you not know that your partner was gonna vote for Trump? How do you not know your partner's political views? How do you not know your partner's core values? Why do you have to go through relationship, engagement, marriage, and only realize when you're married and been married for a while that your partner would vote for Trump? It's a little weird. Like, what do you guys discuss? What do you guys talk about in your relationships?
I've been seeing the trend of the women that are like, going to cancel out my husband's vote by voting blue for Kamala Harris. Like, I mean, I feel you, but also, if that man's voting for Trump, he is actively voting against you and your rights. Let's make that clear. God forbid you got daughters, nieces, sisters, any other women in your family. He's voting against all of y'all. This ain't just differing on tax policy or, immigration reform, prison reform, infrastructure. These are moral differences. J.D. Vance said the man's vote for the family should be enough, as in the women shouldn't get to vote. Those are your rights. The right to choose, abortion bans, like, this is your health care. He's actively voting against you. Let's make that clear. Maybe leave them. Well, I'm not advocating for divorce. Long as you happy. Long as you happy.
Bestie, this election has shown us just how deeply politics can impact our personal lives. It's a reminder that relationships, like politics, are about compromise, communication, and respect. But they're also about staying true to your values. For some, the 2024 election has been a turning point, a chance to reevaluate what they want in a partner and what they're willing to compromise on. And while breakups and divorces are never easy, they can also be opportunities for growth and self-discovery. So, bestie, what do you think? Have you seen relationships around you change because of politics? Or have you ever faced a similar situation? Let's talk about it in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss future uploads. Thank you for spending this time with me today. Remember, whether it's about politics or love, always prioritize what aligns with your heart and your values. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.